Elite. I'm excited to spend a few moments with you as usual. I just want to share a few more things. I know I've been posting kind of these random videos to kind of uptrain you, help you, equip you. We're going to start doing some live calls where we're doing Q&As, script walkthroughs, all those things in the next couple weeks. But for now, these are just the bite-sized chunks that are going to continue to help you skill up. So first thing I want to talk about today is it a good offer, right? So I told you there's 3 stages to our methodology, okay? Stage 1 is to get you skilled up. That's the courses in the lesson programs and the lessons where you learn appointment setting, you learn sales training, you learn methodology, scripting, communication, all those things from an intellectual standpoint, like us sitting down, drinking coffee together, 3 hours of just kind of talking to you about how I do things, how I've done things, and how I've made over $10 million in collected cash in the last 12 months and over $100 million in total lifetime revenue. Now, I'm not boasting. I'm telling you this is real life practical application if you take the time to go through the program and execute. Step 2 is get a job, land a job. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So how do you find that if an offer is good? Okay, so we're talking mostly high ticket opportunities that you're kind of looking at initially. And if you have a great job, no problem. You can optimize wherever you are with the sales system. But we really want to get you selling something at least $3K on average, up to $100,000 in top line revenue. So that you would collect from a cash collected standpoint, so that you can make, I don't know, $300 to $3,000 to $5,000 per sale, $10,000 per transaction. This is a very powerful thing as you scale up with these businesses. But let's talk about like how do you get a good offer. So first thing is you need to ask these questions when you're in the interview process, and you will impress the interviewer. I promise, if you as an interviewee do a good job of asking these types of questions. So first thing you're going to want to say is, how many inbound leads are you guys getting currently per day? That's a great question. And usually they'll tell you in the application or on the listing. So you don't always have to ask that, but you can validate. So it sounds like you're getting about 6 to 8 inbound calls a day. Is that fair? Oh no, it's closer to 5 on average. Okay, cool. What's the top guy getting? You always want to know what the top guy's getting, because you're a sales shark, right? We're going to try to take you to this next level. Like you will be number 1 and beyond, and no one's going to touch you. And so if they're already doing XYZ, we're going to crush that and put you in the alpha beta market. So with that being said, the second thing you need to look at is what's the show rate. So you need to ask, like, well, okay, out of those 6 calls that are coming, how many are actually, or on the calendar being booked, how many are actually, being available? How many are showing up? How many are actually communicating regularly and can I talk to? And so what's the current show rate? Now I'm looking down to see the notes, so if you're wondering what I'm doing. And so essentially that's the key thing. Now the next thing, once you know that number, so let's say there's six calls and their show rate is 50%. Now the industry average on this high ticket offer is about 50% if they don't have a program like ours to take them to 80%. So let's just assume that they're somewhere hovering between 50 to 60%. Let's go with 50%. That means 3 calls will show on a day. Okay. Each call is probably going to be at least 45 minutes to 60 minutes in length that they book, most likely. And so because that's the case, like you'll have about 3 hours of actual work per day. Okay. That leaves you, if you're working 8 hours, 5 hours free. And we're going to talk about what that means in a minute. So let's say you have these offers. Now, a couple things that you want to look at is essentially, once you know those numbers, you need to ask them like the lead handling process. Like, hey, is appointment setting handled independently or are there dedicated setters? If they're like, well, we have a setter and he's doing 50%, you're like, great. I think I might have some systems that could help him get to 60%, 80%. Go through Sit Rate Academy personally. You could even give them, a little bit of pointers and tell them like, here's what I would do differently to get this different show rate. Couple ideas that you could take from there. That will just increase your value. Say it like it's your own, right? What you learn from me, say it like, yeah, I'm a sales shark, so this is what I know, right? And so use that to optimize your show rate. Because let's say, for example, you could get that show rate up to 80%. Well, now you've got 4.5 to 5 calls a day that show. That's 1.5 to 2 more opportunities per day that you could be talking to. Now, if you run that out over a month, that's 40 more calls. If you close 20% of those, that's 8 more deals. Okay, 8 deals times 10K a piece is 80 grand. And if you make 10% of that, that's 8 G's extra in your pocket just by making sure their setter does a good job. So this is why you're asking that. Next thing is, what's the speed to lead time frame, right? Like how fast do we get a hold of these people? Or if you're the setter, if there's a setter, they should be calling them within 15 minutes or less. Harvard did a study that 400% drop off happens in interest if they don't get a message, contact, call, or connection within 15 minutes. Now a text these days is not enough. A confirmation like, hey, received received your booking, looking forward to connect. No, you got to call them. You got to get on the phone or try to leave them a voicemail. Let them know that you're serious about connecting with them, okay? If you have no setter, do it yourself. What next thing you need to ask them is, what is the current monthly income of the top closer? You want to know this. So let's say, for example, they're like, yeah, we get 3 calls a day showing. Okay, cool, gotcha. So in a month, that's about 60 calls. Fair? Okay, cool. Because you just run the math over 20 days. Assume all of this is based on 20 days because you'll work 5 days a week. So that's 60 calls. Of those 60 calls, what's that guy closing? And they're like, oh, well, and you can ask that next question, like, well, how many deals is the top closer making? And what's the average cost collected per deal? Those are the 2 things you're going to want to kind of look at. So let me say that again. What's the current monthly income of the top guy? How many deals is he closing per month? And what's the average, cash collected? That'll tell you his conversion rate. You could also throw in there, like, what's his conversion rate, right? That'll tell you the numbers. Now, you want to be writing all these things down so you can run the math. And if you're working one-on-one with me, these are the types of questions I'll be asking you on the offer. So you'll want to be ready to know these things so that we can figure out if this is a good offer for you and you should move forward in step 2 of our 3-step process to crush the game and become a sales shark. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is, let's say you have 60 calls a month that actually show, and they say, well, he's converting about 20 deals a month. You're like, oh, 20 deals, man, this guy's got like a 30% conversion rate, right? 33% conversion. Is that fair to say? They'll say, yeah, he does. Okay, cool. And again, you can know that just by simply asking how many deals and what's the conversion. So you don't have to come up with all this math. Just ask them those questions. And so if it's a 33%, then industry average is about 25 up to 40% on deals that are about 12K or less for tickets, and tickets that are 20K and above, it's going to be somewhere between 10 lowest to 22%. Okay. So if you're selling on an offer that's 12K or less, you should be able to do 40. So if this guy's doing 33, assume you will be able to do 40 or better because you're a sales shark, right? And we're going to help you get there. But if let's say if it's an over 20K and the best guy's doing 22% already, be like, okay, I'm going to do as good as that guy, probably based on the current lead flow, but maybe I can optimize the amount of calls per day on the back end, right? So, or get more leads based on my performance and effort. So those are the 2 key things that you need to look at. Now, once you know that number, so let's say this guy is doing 20 deals a month. What is the average ticket per sale? And that's that average revenue I was talking about, cash collected. You don't care that it's $20,000 sold, but they only collected 10K if you're not paid on anything but cash collected. So ask the cash collected question, like how much cash collected is there and per deal? And if they're like, oh, we typically take $10,000 per deal in cash, and that's what you're paid for. Great. If you're paid on all the amount just over time, you can treat it like you collect it all and it just get paid over time. But really, you care about how much you're collecting, because that's going to be what your paycheck is every 2 weeks or once a month or every week, depending on how their pay cycles are. Now, some of these businesses don't pay you for 1 month, so you got to grind, kick butt, crush your month, and then at the end of that month, submit your invoice and get paid a couple days after the first of the month. So you need to do all you can to make good money during that month, so that the beginning of the next month is solid. You can make your rent, make your bills, and live your life. Right? And so because that's the case, let's say you put in $10,000. Or sorry, you sold $10,000 cash collected on a deal, and that guy did 20 deals. So cool, simple math, 10,000 times 20 deals is 200K cash collected. And let's assume you're making, next question will be, well, what is the average commission that I'm making, per deal? If they're like 10%. Cool. So on this deal, the best guy is making about $200,000, and you can, or $20,000 a month, right? So about $240,000 a year, and you can validate that that's true. This is how you hold them accountable too, right? So by asking these questions, if they're like, let me give you an example. Oh, best guy's doing like 30% conversion. You're like, oh wow, how many deals is he doing? 15. Okay, cool. And how many calls does he take in? Probably 70. Okay, that's closer to like 15% conversion. Is that fair? And just do your calculator math, man. Just take the numbers and divide them. And if you're not good at math, it's very simple. Just take the number of calls they had, and you essentially just divide out how many sales they had. So if I had 20 sales, I divide that by 60 calls, it's going to give me a number, right? And then that number is going to tell me the conversion, and I'll go, okay, that's true or not true. You're trying to validate whether what they're saying is smoke or best case scenario or real time, because that matters on these offers, okay? And then next thing you want to know is really, with that cash collected, if that guy's making 20 G's a month and that all lines up, are you okay with making 20 grand a month? Right? Like, is that okay with you? Do you need to make more? Do you want to make more? If so, you're either going to have to work more hours, produce more results through your own bookings, and we'll talk about that, or you're going to have to simply accept 20K as kind of the top opportunity and 20 to 25K as a possibility. But once you get to that top tier, they'll give you more calls. They'll add more on your bookings. The next thing that you can also ask is like, how many hours can I work? right? That's a really good question for a potential guy because they're like, wow, this guy wants to grind, right? I would tell you, I worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Woo, crazy, right? I was working 60-hour weeks in high ticket sales. But I'll tell you this, you don't have to do that, but you can do that in most cases, and they'll fill your calendar for as much as you're willing to work. So if they book a call every hour on the hour and you work 10 hours, you got 10 calls. And if they're 60% show rate, you got 6 calls. If you're closing 30% of those deals, you're getting a deal a day at least, right? 2 deals a day. So that's the beauty of this model, where you look at this and you go, hey, I can make a deal and a half a day at 10K. I'm collecting 1,500 in income a day times 10 days is 15K. Multiply that by 2, that's 30K. Boom, I'm making 30 G's a month on this opportunity. Let's go, right? This is how you validate that math. Now, again, if you're working with me, I'll help you do all the math and figure it out. But essentially, that's what you want to look at. Now, next, you need to ask is, are there enough leads to fill my calendar, or is this limited volume? Listen, if they have less than 3 to 5 calls a day, I'd walk away. I'd find another opportunity, unless it's high ticket, right? That are going to show like 50K or more, 30K or more. I'd say 30K or more is fair. And because on a 30K, you'll make about $3,000. So if there's 5 calls, you close 1 every other day. Yeah, you're going to make good money, right? You'll make yourself like 30, 40 grand in a month, like 15, you'll be good. 15 sales, you'll make 40 grand, and that'll be a good place. But if they only have 3 to 5 calls and they're under 10K, just tell them, hey, like, it sounds like there's really not an opportunity. And then I would ask them, like, would you ramp up marketing if I could prove to you in 1 week that I could close, or 2 weeks that I could close? If they say yes, then you go, cool, then maybe it's an opportunity to trial. And I'd even tell them, like, let's try it out together, because I need to make the kind of money that I'm after, and I'm a shark, right? Now, again, next thing is you need to ask, like, what's the size? So client database and self-setting. If you want high income, you need to produce results, which means you need to put high input in to get high output, right? So to keep it very simple, and I want to keep this video under about 15 minutes, is what is the size of your current client database? And is it possible to self-set during downtimes? They're always going to say yes. You can totally call outbound, right? So if they do have that availability, ask, what systems do you have? Do you have like a dialer, like an auto dialer, or do I have to self-dial these numbers through the CRM? What CRM are you using? This is going to impress the shiz out of these people. They're going to be super stoked that you're asking these kind of questions, especially during your interview, right? So come to these interviews, not just when they say, do you have any questions? Ask these questions, right? If they haven't gotten them answered, ask these questions. And then finally, you want to put high input in, which means, look, when you have only 3 calls a day and you're working 3 maybe hours a day, and you want to put in an extra 2 hours just to grind, and you only want to work 5 hours, whoop-de-doo, 25 hours a week part-time. That's not a lot, I'm telling you, especially in life once you get into like hard work, right? And hard work produces profit. But let's say you're working 25 hours a week. That's it. Some of you guys would like bend over backwards to work that amount because you're working 70 hours a week and you're making, $15 an hour or $25 an hour, and your life isn't changing yet, right? So what I'm telling you is that if you do this and you put in 2 hours a day of outbound calls, I've been able to close 1 to 3 booked appointments on cold leads over 4 months using what's inside of that Sit Rate Academy. So let's say you're not as good as me and you don't do 3 per day, right? Per hour, okay? And this is per hour, and you only do 1. Well, 2 hours a day, 2 booked calls a day. Let's say 50% of those show. That's 1 call a day extra. In a 20-day work month, you would have 20 calls that are additional in your days, over your 20 days. So 1 a day that show. If you closed 10% of those cold deals, I'm being super conservative, you would have 2 extra deals. If your average ticket was 10K and you made $1,000, you just leveled up your income by 2K per month. I hope on the other side of this, you're saying, I can make 10K, 20K, 30K, 50K, $50,000, $100,000 a month. I could literally do whatever I want, bless, refresh, and encourage others, have time, location, and lifestyle freedom. I hope you're thinking the way I'm thinking. I look forward to helping you become a sales shark even more. If you need help, book a call with me. I'll drop the link below.